afternoon, everyone, and welcome to one of RVN's new television shows, What the Why, with host Barbara Ann. Guess who's Barbara Ann? Our show features conversations with diverse leaders from all walks of life about why they do what they do and how they figured out that it was meant for them to do it. Maybe you're looking for something different in your life or career. Maybe you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. How many of us have said that over and over again? Maybe you feel stuck and want to get unstuck, whether it's in your life or your business. Maybe you even found us by accident, although personally I don't believe there is any such thing as accidents. Whatever led you here, this show is for you, and thank you very much for joining us. Our guest today is Christine Herbert. She's a massage therapist and bodywork specialist based outside of Seattle, Washington, a transplant from this area, Jersey girl. She is a Jersey girl. And with most guests, you've heard me introduce them by reviewing all of the amazing things that they've done, helping people figure out what they want to do in their lives. This guest is a little bit different because she's actually written a very transformational book about how she figured out what happened in hers. Just so that I'm consistent with my guests, Christine earned her bachelor's degree in biology and natural science from Messiah University in the 90s. And after several years in therapy and healing-related work, she made a life-changing decision, an extremely gripping life decision. She decided to join the Peace Corps, where she served as a health educator from 2004 to 2006, and that is what we're here to talk about today. This is Christine's new memoir, The Color of the Elephant, and I want to make sure I'm pronouncing this correctly. Memoir of a Muzungu?
Muzungu, yeah.
Muzungu, okay. She describes her choice as one impulsive decision, the best 2 years of her life. Full disclosure, my regular viewers, for all 5 episodes that I've had, know that I have a company called Purposeful Solutions and Evolutions, and we do transformational coaching and core purpose coaching. Any of you who are thinking about coming on board as a client, you will be assigned this book. This book will be included in any curriculum that I do going forward in my business and in other endeavors as part of what's involved with going through a transformation or a core purpose or a life adjustment, or even just figuring out how to find happiness. Because happiness is an internally driven thing, not an externally driven thing. So, having said all of that, without further ado, I would like to welcome to our show Christine Herbert. So welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thank you.
I am so glad you're basically on a tour, for lack of better words, of the East Coast. So I'm thrilled that you're able to stop by and talk to us about your experience.
Thank you.
So everyone has a story. How did you get to here?
I think it was always calling to me, going into the Peace Corps. I grew up in 70s and 80s where it was very common when you watch television to have these PSAs come up on TV and they'd show all these people working in the fields and building wells and everything and doing all these amazing things all around the world. And they would say at the end, the tagline was, Peace Corps, the toughest job you'll ever love. And that always caught me, and I was like, what does that really mean? Because it's kind of poetic, right? Yeah. The toughest job you'll ever love. And as a little kid, I'd always kind of noodle it around and say, what did that mean? And could I do something like that? And is that desirable to do something that's tough? Why would you want this? Why would you do this? So it was always there. The seed was always there. And I'd always wanted to go to Africa, but I didn't know how or how that was going to happen or what that would look like for me. And so when I was turning 30, I felt like I was kind of hitting that point. Sometimes you take stock when you hit these milestones, right? And 30 now, it seems to me, as somebody who's pushing 50, at 30, I'm like, I was so young. Why was I really concerned about running out of time? But I was concerned about, like, okay, I'm at a good point now where I can switch gears and do something different. I was doing massage therapy then even, had been doing that for a while, but was kind of feeling like there's got to be more, there's got to be more. And what should I do with my life right now? What are the things I said I always wanted to do someday before I run out of someday? And what came to me was the Peace Corps. I always wanted to do the Peace Corps. It always interested me, you know.
Wow.
So that's what I did. I applied and I was able to get into a health education program, and I was sent to Zambia.
Zambia, wow. So stepping back a little bit, you saw these commercials so all your life about the Peace Corps. But what was it that you wanted to be when you were really young?
So I never had like this idea of the thing that I absolutely had to do.
Okay.
I knew that I liked to help people. And I really still feel like that's the core of who I am. I like to help people.
Okay.
And it doesn't really matter to me what shape that takes. And I think that has been evident throughout my career, because I have often switched gears, you know, and kind of taken a little pivot and done something slightly different and slightly different. Mostly it's been nonprofit work. It's been body work to help people just by putting my hands on them, or it's been volunteer work. And so this is one of those ways in which that manifested. But as a child, I had all these ideas of things I could do, but nothing really stuck. I never had this, I had to do this, you know, and I think that is kind of how I have lived my life even as an adult, you know, just been open to the idea of what's next.
So how did your friends and family react when you reveal that you've made this momentous decision?
Not great. I'll be honest. There wasn't a whole lot of people being like, yes, fantastic, this is perfect for you. That came later. At the time, because 9/11 had happened, it was about a year and a half after 9/11 when I applied. And my family felt like this is not the right time for Americans to go overseas. It is not safe. You stay home, don't do this. I mean, I see that you want to do this thing, and I appreciate that about you, but I don't think it's wise. And I came up against that. And the more I came up against that with my family, I felt like, no, I dug my heels in a little bit more. I'm like, no, I do want to do this. This isn't a flight of fancy. It is something I want to do, and I feel more and more certain that this is what I want to do. And so that kind of drove me towards it rather than discouraging me.
Okay. Now, what was the process like? Did you get to pick Zambia, or okay, so this was a choice?
So you're allowed to pick an area that you prefer. So maybe you've always wanted to go to Southeast Asia. Maybe you want to go to the Caribbean. Maybe you want to go to kind of, I don't know, a developing Eastern European country. You know, you might have an idea, or based on your skills, say you speak French. You might say, I want to go to West Africa or something like that, you know, based on what skills or interest you have. However, the assignment you get may or may not fit that preference. And my preference was for Africa. Anywhere in Africa, didn't care.
Okay.
Fortunately, I got the assignment of Zambia. And when I got the call and they said, Zambia, I went, great, where is that? And I had to get out the map and find exactly where it was, because Zambia doesn't make the news very often.
No.
It's surrounded by 7 other countries that you've heard of more, you know, because more things are happening there. But, you know, as far as, say, like strife and war and there's been a coup or something, you know, in Zambia, there's not a whole lot of big news coming out of Zambia. So I literally did have to get a map and look and see where it was.
Yeah, I really admittedly didn't know a lot about Zambia. I had a rough idea where it was located. But you're right, not a lot happens for good reasons.
For good reasons. It's a peaceful country, yeah.
So you're off to Zambia, and one of the things you write about early on is your age compared to some of the other folks that you're traveling with. But I suspect that contributed to why you actually took the time to learn and pay attention to the directions for what you're supposed to bring with you. in terms of clothing and things like that.
That may be true, yeah. And I was blaming it more on just kind of like my tendency to over-prepare and over-read and being a goody-goody and wanting to follow the rules. But however, being slightly older may have had something to do with that, where, I don't know, I'm of a generation too that, you try to measure twice, cut once, you're kind of, that's kind of drilled into you. But yeah, Peace Corps, for those in the audience that are wondering, like, could I do this? Even at this early time in the conversation, maybe their interest is piqued.
Yep. Absolutely.
You can be pretty much any age from, adult age to serve, as long as you're healthy enough to meet all the health requirements to go. Most people that serve are right out of college. And there's a reason for that. They've got the time and they're taking a break before they dive into the job market to try something and, build up some skills, some leadership skills, get some things on the resume, and then maybe decide what they want to do when they get back to the States. People mid-career maybe don't feel they have that time, or maybe they're raising kids or whatever, and they don't have the time, the freedom to go abroad for a couple of years. But then there's going to be people that are older. There's going to be people that do this as their retirement. That was somebody in my group. Everybody was in their 20s, pretty much just out of college. Then there was me, 30s. And then there was somebody who was in his mid-60s. Okay. So that was how the breakdown of that went.
I know somebody who went to Belize in her 30s as well. So I can attest to the fact that, yes, they do run the gamut of ages. And so you're there as a group, and you're a little more comfortable than everybody else in terms of your clothing, at least, because you listen to the directions, and you start going into some really intense training.
Yeah.
Is really a comprehensive immersion program. Can you talk a little bit more about how the training program worked for the point when you got there to the point that you actually went to live with a family to learn to speak a specific language?
Right. So the training when you get on site is very intense. Your term of service is 27 months, okay? So 2 years plus the first 3 months, which is your training. And the training you're doing in country, you're living with a family. They're instructed not to speak English to you. So they try to drill the language into you 24/7. You're really in language classes. Often you could be there 8 hours a day, even learning language. It's incredibly intensive. Plus you're learning your job. Plus you're in a developing country, so your school environment is not your American school environment. You're just outside in some sort of open air mud hut doing this. You're studying at night by lamplight or candlelight, trying to read and study and, trying to drill all of your language and your job skills into your head. So that's a challenge as well.
And we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back because there's a unique twist to the language learning that you undertook while you were on your assignment. So stay tuned for more with Christine Herbert. Welcome back to What the Why with our guest today, Christine Herbert. And Christine was just telling us before the break about the immersion language training that she received with a family. But there's a slight twist. So you finish your immersion language training and you find out what your assignment is going to be. And surprise.
So surprise, I've been learning Bemba for 8 hours a day for 3 months. And I get my assignment and I go visit the site and I'm not quite sure what people are saying to me. And it turns out they speak Lamba. So and it wasn't really a fault on Peace Corps' part. There are 73 languages in Zambia. And Zambia is a country the size of about Texas. So it's a pretty good size, but 73 languages. So you go, just 50, 100 miles from where you are at, and they're speaking a different dialect. And so this is a slightly different dialect, which felt like a panic attack moment when I got there and said, I don't speak the language. What have I been doing these last 3 months?
Wow.
But it turned out to be very similar. the everyday objects for things and the names for, you and me and kind of that kind of thing were different, but the verbs were often the same. So I was able to kind of like, okay, switch gears. It's not tragic. We can do this. And then learn Lamba when I got to my village.
Wow.
Yeah.
You developed a lot of really close relationships with
did.
the people that were there.
Yeah.
You had the coveted lake.
I did.
You have to read the book if you want to know why the lake is coveted, because not everybody has a lake where they were actually assigned.
I was very lucky.
And your own living quarters, and you got to meet some really amazing people. But you're still training through this process as well, and you're traveling distances with a bicycle.
Yeah. So you're always living in the standard of living, as much as you can, as everyone else in your area. So if I had been assigned to a place like maybe Moldova or something, I would have limited electricity, I'd have an apartment, and maybe I'd have a motorbike, but in Zambia, I had a mud hut, and I had no electricity or running water, and I had a bicycle. That's about what my neighbors would have. It was very rare to find an automobile there was like 2 people that had a truck, and one belonged to the richest man in the village, and one that belonged to the mission where the clinic was, where I worked. So that was kind of funded through the diocese, but it was very rare to have.
You also made some not so awesome friends in the form of a little worm that took up residence in your leg.
There was that, yeah.
I was kind of waiting to see if you gave the worm a name at one point.
You could just call him like Hooky the hookworm.
There you go.
Yeah, it was not very inventive, but yes, it was a long time in there. About 6 months I had that worm living in my leg.
And you had a really scary bout with malaria too.
Several times. I had malaria 3 times during my 27 months. I got it once a year, and it didn't even matter that I took the medication to try to prevent it. You can still have breakthroughs, and that's what I got.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I know we're a little bit out of sequence, but at one point when you go for training, you're going for some testing, and you basically have
the meltdown of the
a
century.
Meltdown moment. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, because I think that's a totally human thing, and we've all done that. When we push ourselves so hard, we're going to break, and you break in different ways and in unexpected ways. And for me, I just blanked out on everything that I'd studied so hard on. And not only that, but I just couldn't stop crying. Like the tears were coming, and I just couldn't stop crying. And I spent like the next 3 hours going through these different stations where I had to do different testing. And they'd say, "Are you sure you want to go on with this? Like you can take a moment." I was like, "I need more than a moment. It won't stop." Like the tears just kept coming.
You just kept going.
Yeah.
You just
like, just ignore.
On going in spite of how you felt, how hard it was, you just kept going.
Because it was just stress. It was how stress was manifesting in that moment. And I'm not a big crier, but at that moment, I'm like, this is what my body wants to do. And the tears just kept coming. And then, by the end of the day, I was fine. But that was surprising and strange. And yet, not to be, that's really expected when you're pushing yourself so hard.
And I know you were actually really concerned that you were potentially not going to be able to continue in the program.
Oh, yeah.
Because of how things have gone. And I'm going to, with your permission, I'm going to read one of my favorite things that you write about in the book.
Okay.
Because a very well-respected gentleman who heads up the area program has come to visit you in person.
Yeah.
And you start to go into a state of panic. Convinced that he's there to bounce you out of the program, and you've started making all the excuses that we make up in our brain regarding what's going on, why things aren't going well, and then he lets you know that he's actually there because some other volunteers have expressed concerns about the curriculum, and he's meeting with each volunteer to discuss any issues you might have. And then you write, it seems the other volunteers, instead of berating themselves for being idiotic or incompetent, which you talk about often throughout the book, They've shifted to blame for their shortcomings to the staff of the training center. Complaints range from deplorable living conditions to difficult coursework to specific teachers. The multiple hours of language training each day has been deemed too taxing. The technical competency exams too frequent. The time consuming. In short, things are just too hard. It really boils down to expectations, he says. We want to be clear about what your expectations of this program are. My expectations? I trail off for a moment and collect my thoughts. I only had one expectation, really. I expected that the Peace Corps would be the hardest thing that I would ever do in my life, and it is. This is absolutely the hardest thing I have ever done in my life, but I'm not complaining. I wanted it to be hard. I came here for hard. I love that it's hard. If I wanted easy, I would have just stayed home. So rest assured, the program has lived up to my expectations. In fact, I would say that it has exceeded my expectations. We sit in silence for a beat or two, eyes locked together. A slow smile splits his face. I have surprised him. My response has really tickled him for some reason. He lets out a chuckle and shakes his head in disbelief. So, we have exceeded your expectations? I'm glad we haven't disappointed you, he says, and rises to take his leave. Since everything is fine here, I'll be on my way. Yes, I'm fine, I say, really meaning it for the first time today. Everything is just fine. It's really powerful, really, really powerful. I'm curious, when you hear that read back to you, what goes through your mind?
I can very vividly remember this all happening and being relieved that he wasn't meeting with me to kick me out for being a mess and being stressed out, and for really meaning it, saying, I came here for hard. Mm-hmm. Like, this has met and exceeded my expectations. And I think it goes back to me being a kid watching those PSAs of Peace Corps, and it's saying, the toughest job you'll ever love. Mm-hmm. I knew it would be hard. Mm-hmm. That was a given, you know, and I did love it. I loved that it was hard.
When I read that passage, that's when I knew that this was going to be a recommended coaching tool, because so many people out there blame everyone and everything else around them for what's going wrong. And that wasn't you. And that really surprised him, obviously.
Yeah. And I was surprised to hear that other volunteers had gone and they went right up the food chain and started saying, this is too hard, you know, we can't do this, these conditions aren't, you know, what we signed up for. And I was surprised because I thought I was the only one feeling really challenged by this environment. You know, I was the one that had that, you know, big breakdown. And everyone else seemed to be handling it. And I think that that's what you never know. You never know what's going on inside other people. And if they look like they have it together, that doesn't mean anything. They might be a mess on the inside, but they might not be showing that to you. So never compare yourself with other people.
All right. And I know we're starting to run close to time, but I did want to ask you, because the color of the elephant is not actually about an elephant.
No, there are no elephants in this novel.
You want to explain? I'm going to read you very, very quickly since we only have a couple minutes. I have learned, however, that the color of the elephant trumps all. From what I've experienced, being white invites discussion. I'm reminded daily, either by words or action, how very white I am. I couldn't forget my race if I tried.
Yes, it alludes to the fact that, you know, sometimes race becomes that elephant in the room, and people are afraid to bring it up, to be impolite or something. And I wondered if people would dance around the fact that I was white and I was a minority there in Africa. But it was not like that at all.
No.
Everybody brought it up all the time.
It was open and embraced.
It was.
It
was
welcomed
embraced.
you.
It wasn't anything to shy, you know, be shy about speaking about. And I thought that was interesting and eye-opening. Yeah.
And it was also one of the things I loved also, realizing that there really is so much beauty in our diversity. And you speak so eloquently about it through the pages. And unfortunately, as much as I would love to ask you a lot more questions, I could do 8 episodes just on this book. That's how much seriously, I'm not joking, that's how much I love this book. And kudos to Christine Herbert, Sister Sharon, for making sure I found out about this book. So thank you so much for taking the time while you're out here to stop and talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
And I know there's going to be information where people can follow you online that's going to be posted at the end of the show. And please, this is available on Goodreads, Amazon. I obviously cannot recommend it highly enough. And again, whether it is the experience you just had with Christine, or even our past guests, Lisa, Candace, Ellen, Michelle, and Elaine, we have other inspiring guests that will be joining us in the coming weeks and starting the lineup of men. We're finally going to have someone on the show. Our next guest next week is Gene Spillane, a government lending and contracting expert who also is a veteran, a service-disabled veteran, and volunteer in that community. He'll be joining us to talk about the many different ways he is living his purpose in life in all of those roles. Followed by that, 2 weeks from now, Brian Van Loan, co-owner of Unique Hair with Jazz and Dad, will join us to talk about how he found his purpose in hair and other unique interests, and how he is making that transition from being unique hair to unique hair with Jazz and Dad. As a reminder, What the Why airs on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m., Mondays at 3:30 p.m., and is available on demand through RVN Television and Roku, usually starting on Wednesday afternoons. Thank you again for taking the time to join us. Whether you're looking to make a change in your life or career, big or small, or significantly large, please join us again for more inspirational and informative conversations with people who wanted to make changes, overcame their fears and obstacles to find their core purpose and live it.